Welcome to The Impact Effect, hosted by conscious leadership expert Tom Eddington, advisor to some of the world's most successful companies and CEOs, where each week we help executives, entrepreneurs, and organizers become more effective leaders while growing businesses that are making an impact in the world. And now, here's Tom.
Hi, welcome to the Impact Effect Network, where we discuss making business matter through conscious leadership. I'm Tom Eddington, and I am so excited about the conversation we're going to have today with Marti Glenn. Welcome, Marti. I'd really appreciate it if you could just share a little bit about your background and the work that you're doing and have been doing for decades.
I was raised in a pretty crazy, abusive family, got away from all that, and went to college, got 3 degrees. And in my graduate work, I was very curious about why some people thrive and others just merely survive. They just barely make it day to day. And I had the research crew from the College of Business in 3 different universities, and they were helping me look at the question, what creates satisfaction, worker satisfaction? What makes people feel good about their work? And I thought it had to do with their personality. So that was my hypothesis, because I have a good personality, I'm outgoing, and I thought that must be why I'm happy. Well, I was dead wrong. Personality type has very little to do with how happy we are in our workplace. And I just kept going and kept looking, and helped to start 2 colleges and an inpatient treatment center for teens and a number of personal growth programs where we train leaders and therapists and coaches and looking at these questions. And the most fascinating part to me is bringing in the science, because I can have one belief and you can have another and we can try all these things. But when we look at what the science says about how to be more conscious, how to show up, how to really be present and be successful, that has been very interesting to me. So our programs at Ryzio, my husband and I have been working together on this for a long time, take leaders through the process of not just what you need to do, but how to do it.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Marti. There's a whole lot there that I want to dive into. One of the things you talked about was consciousness, and so I'd like to just start with having you share with our audience how you define consciousness and conscious leadership.
Yes, such an important question right now. And for me, consciousness has to do with awareness, being present, mindful, alert, being able to show up authentically as who I am with you right now. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm not focused on goals. I'm present right here with you. I'm able to track myself, meaning what my needs are. I'm able to notice what's happening for you and be in that dance together.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And one of the critical pieces in my definition of conscious leadership is that self-awareness. I mean, that's a foundational piece. And what I love about the Ryzio work, and just a quick commercial for Ryzio, I'm a graduate of the Ryzio program, and it's phenomenal work. There's, to the best of my awareness, there's nothing else like it on the planet. And what I love about it is the ability for someone in a Ryzio retreat to really develop that sense of self-awareness. And so I'd love for you to talk about the work you're doing in Ryzio, how it helps leaders with self-awareness and becoming more conscious leaders, and especially the science that's supporting the work you're doing.
Well, thank you. I'm grinning because I love to hear that and make that connection. It is true. Awareness is the one most critical skill that any of us, particularly as leaders, can develop. And with awareness, we have choice. If I'm just on automatic and I'm just going down the road and doing what I need to do and I'm focused on my goals, I'm not showing up. and I'm not doing what I need to do. So that mindfulness, and when we talk about mindfulness, I love the description in your book of just going outside for a moment and noticing the trees. So part of what we try to bring to our leaders in the Ryzio programs is that, first of all, what am I thinking? Where is my brain? Am I in, what are the thoughts I'm having, and what am I telling myself? And what we know is that when we're young, we create a program that keeps us from really knowing who we are. When we get scolded and shamed and we get pushed and cajoled and things like that, it helps us believe things that aren't true. Believe that I'm not enough, or I'm not smart, or in order for me to excel, I have to be better than everybody else, or whatever it is. We all have some version of that. And it's like an old program in the computer, and we know how that can mess things up. And part of what we want to do is use this science as a way of shifting that. And we start with awareness. And I like to talk a little bit about polyvagal theory, if that's all right here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I like to say the nerve you never heard of is running your life. We've heard a lot about the brain, and we know about thinking. We know about right hemisphere, left hemisphere. We know about the executive part of the brain, and we know about the reptilian brain and all of that. What we were never taught is something Stephen Porges from the University of North Carolina has come up with, and that's what he calls polyvagal theory. Poly means many, and this vagus nerve is this wandering nerve that goes down through our body and really tells our body what to do and how to do it, when we're safe and when we're not. And just a little tiny background with that and how it develops. When we're born, the little tiny nerve endings of the vagus nerve in our ear, we hear our mother, our caregiver's voice, and we know, I'm safe here. And then that begins to develop in the inner ear, and then around the eyes. We have eye contact, we slow down, and it develops around the eyes, and then it comes down. The vagus nerve comes all the way down. It comes to the heart, all around the heart. And when I'm seen and heard and I feel safe, then the vagus nerve develops around the heart and calms our nervous system. Well, most of us didn't have quite what we needed as far as being seen and heard as babies, as children. And we're not blaming parents. You and I know, Tom, we are parents. We can't blame the parents because our parents did the best they could with what they had. We can grow the vagus nerve at any time. And we do it through some things I want to tell you about in a minute. But the thing that Porges discovered is that we have not two branches of our nervous system. We have three. We were all taught, at least I was, that we have fight, flight, and freeze. Sympathetic, parasympathetic. And Porges says, no. As human beings, we have a third branch of the nervous system. Because when we're born, we can't crawl to the source of our food like other animals do. It's just a good thing we're so cute, right? and as babies, it's like, of course. And so that social interaction is how we learn to regulate the nervous system. That's what grows the vagus nerve. And that is our first go-to, no matter what we're doing, is we need a social connection to calm. Now, if we apply this to business, you can see the difference because there's a lot of fear in every business, especially now, a lot going on. And fear is a big piece that comes up. And a lot of times, if you come at me with a strong voice and that I'm going to get scared and I'm either going to run away, push you away, or shut down. And that's not very helpful. And so that's why the conscious leadership is so vital, because it helps us do what we need to do to give people that social interaction so they can feel safe. And when they have that feeling of safety, and all the research is saying, whether it's neuroscience or epigenetics or any of these theories, trauma therapy, any of those things, they say we have to have an experience of safety in order to show up. And in many work environments, that's changing, thank goodness. But in many work environments, people do not feel safe to show up and be who they are and make mistakes and fall down, get up, keep dancing. So that's just a little taste of what that is and why it's important. And that's what we do in Ryzio, is give people very specific processes to do to change the brain, grow the nervous system, and even things that help change the trajectory of the DNA. It's pretty exciting.
Well, what I really appreciate about what you shared, Marty, and the science is that, in the 1970s, Peter Levine was doing some pretty groundbreaking research on trauma. And then a couple of decades ago, Bruce Lipton and his work around epigenetics and helping us understand we are not our DNA. And now with Porges's work about the polyvagal theory, it provides a really hopeful sign collectively across all three of those researchers on what it means to be human, what it means to be a leader, what's possible, and that it's not that we can ignore or pretend that our history and our family didn't happen, but we can show up in a different way. We can heal.
That's
We can address some of the traumas, some of the wounding, some of the experiences of our DNA to be a conscious and effective leader with that commitment to self-awareness.
That's right. That's exactly right. And in order for me to be an effective leader, I have to do my own work. I have to see where my stumbling blocks are. I have to get out of the levels of consciousness that put me, as you so beautifully described in your book, victim, shadow, and if I'm a victim, then you owe me, and I'm the only way I can get my needs met is if you do it for me. Or if I'm in the shadow part, that's the part of me that wants you to know how wonderful I am. Right. And I'm going to tell you why what you're doing is because I'm so great. Right. We have that. And then we move to the place that you talk about consciousness. And we do that, and we can only do that when I feel safe to show up. It's okay for me to be who I am right now. We are one, and we have to take care of each other.
Well, I'd like to go a bit deeper in a specific area, and I want to talk about that four-letter word, love.
All right.
And what I would appreciate hearing your perspective on is trust and love in the workplace, and
Yes.
the responsibility of a conscious leader in fostering that environment.
Excellent. Yes, love is it's the byword now. It used to be that love meant primary relationship and sexuality, and not only could we not have it at work, we couldn't even think about it or talk about it. It was totally out the door. And over the last maybe 10 years, certainly 5 years, certainly in the last year, if you Google love and work, it's all over the place. And I think Steve Farber, with his book, Love is just damn good business, which I really liked. It's there. And what we mean by love is awareness, caring. It matters to me what's happening for you. And the way we show that, and most of our listeners probably totally understand this, is I'm not just interested in what you're doing. I'm interested in who you are. And we can pass in the hall, and I want to know about their kids. I want to know how did Junior do in the soccer game the other day? Or I know you were going to take a vacation, tell you whatever. And I'm curious about that, so that we're real people. And we share not only on what I call the horizontal plane, but we also begin to share on the vertical plane, which is deep inside me and what I'm worried about or what concerns me. Not that you're going to do psychotherapy in the middle of a business meeting at all, but just some human concern, which shows you're okay. It's okay. Another way that I believe that we show love in the workplace is through my own vulnerability, which is part of the authenticity. Ken and I took over an organization a number of years ago and did not realize that the culture was what I would call toxic. And as we did this, as we became more vulnerable and real and authentic, and it's the love that starts with love for myself, love for the people I'm working with, and the care. I care about you. I care what happens to you. I care that you're satisfied here in our workplace. I want to hear about your creativity. And then the deep caring that goes further, that we have, the caring we have for our families, certainly, but our communities and the world. The planet right now is crying for our love, our caring, and our concern. It's, for me, it's the most important word we have. In fact, we got a new car last year, and my license plate says M-N-8 love. Emanate love.
You're watching the Impact Effect Network. Who you are is how you lead. Conscious leadership is an intuitive, intentional process requiring an open heart, an open mind, and a committed desire to fully own how you show up in the world. If you're a CEO, a solopreneur, or a community leader, Tom Eddington's ebook helps you amplify your strengths, making you the best version of yourself. Download the ebook today and become a part of bringing conscious leadership to the planet.
When you talk about love, I mean, obviously, you've already mentioned it, that it's essential that the leader has that sense of self-awareness. Part of the work I do is helping leaders understand what is the right or appropriate level of vulnerability. And it's situational. It depends on the relationship. It depends on the culture of the organization. But fostering that sense of leadership where the leader is appropriately vulnerable, and it's very different for men and women in the workplace.
Right, that's right. And the appropriate word is appropriate. You know, I'm not going to go in and tell them that I had a fight with my husband. I'm not going to, I'm not going to do that. And I might tell them something particularly about work. Something I'm working on, something I'm puzzling about. But it has to do with not so much sharing blunders, which is what I was talking about, but it has to do with being authentic, being me, and not having to put up this facade of pretending that I've got it all together and I can't let you see anything, that's going on. But to be as real and sharing as much as possible. But I wanted them to know that I'm with them. I'm not above putting the food away or, cleaning up the tables or whatever. And those moments gave me time to just hang out. And how are your kids doing? Or I noticed, you had a doctor's appointment yesterday. How did that go? So several things with that is that I'm not just over there in my office. I mean, I'm the CEO and I could do whatever, my assistant should be doing this. Yes. And she did. She was fabulous, wonderful Alice. And that was a not to be missed opportunity to just do what I call side-by-side intimacy. It's the hanging out, it's a lot of workplaces have, ping pong or games that people play or things that they can do. That's that side-by-side relating that helps us be real people and experience the deep caring, experience the love that we can then bring that totally affects the bottom line, which is, what our board of directors want to see. And all of the love affects that tremendously.
Can you talk about the Ryzio process, the process you take leaders through, the science behind the process to help them develop that sense of self-awareness?
Wow, yes. Let's see. How much time do we have? Oh, my favorite thing. And first of all, and I've mentioned this before, and it's, always keep doing it. The first thing we do at Ryzio, and that we should all be doing in all of our organizations, is look at how do we create safety. That is number one, everything we do. And we create safety by orienting people, telling them exactly what's happening, having one-on-one conversations, bringing them into the mix, asking their opinion about things. A lot of ways, but that is always number one with every process that we do. We certainly do some of the science, talking about how the nervous system develops and how, if any of us have digestive issues or issues with anxiety or depression, no fault, no harm, no foul there. There's something we can do. And there are a number of things. One of the processes that you know well is just simply a process that comes out of Heart Math Institute. And if you notice that you're a little off or you're not responding the way you should or would like to, they call it ABC: aware, breathe, connect. So I'm aware that I'm a little off, and I just put my hand on my heart. And believe me, I have done this in the middle of a board meeting. Nobody cares. Just got my hand on my heart, and I take a breath with a long exhale. And in my mind, I connect with something in the moment, like, I've got this, everything's going to be okay, I'm all right, whatever that is I need to connect with. Or sometimes if I'm in a really tough situation, like I was when we turned over our school to a larger university, and the person kept me on for a while, and he looked at me one day and he said, "Don't even think about opening your mouth in a meeting." It's like, that does not create safety. That does not, and but I learned it wasn't about me. I would go to a meeting, love the people I love, and keep my mouth shut. But that is one thing that we do, is teach the ABC. There's some other processes that literally grow the vagus nerve. I call vagal nurturing. You can look that up on Vimeo. Just go to Vimeo and put in vagal nurturing. It'll come up. 2-minute process that really helps grow the vagus nerve and settle the nervous system. And there are other processes that we do, looking at not only your goals, but how do I stop myself? What is it in my life that keeps me from being present and aware? And it's not about examining things, but sometimes it's like putting a puzzle piece together. Oh, yeah. It's not about, something's wrong with you or what happened to you. It's like, what's possible for you? And what is the superpower that you have that came out of all that? I mean, the curiosity that I had as a kid and my need to take care of everybody in the room has really become my superpower. It served me then. It got me in trouble a lot, right? And now, oh, wait a minute, that's a gift. And to help me, to help others look at what was a stumbling block when I was younger. Sometimes it's that people stuttered or they were dyslexic or, they got bullied as kids. And there's a lot more processes that we do. And part of it is creating community, which is another part of conscious leadership, is having accountability buddies, as you have mentioned, having a coach outside, and having some sense of community even within the organization. How do I even know when I'm not connected, when I'm shut down? Those are very important processes and skills for us as leaders.
You're watching the Impact Effect Network, the world's first 24-hour on-demand business and leadership video and podcast network, bringing conscious leadership to a global audience.
So you've talked about Porges's work and how you've integrated that in the polyvagal nurturing and some of the polyvagal work. What's some of the other science that's supporting the work that you're doing? And how have you incorporated that in the experience that folks
Yeah.
have in becoming more self-aware?
Well, one of the things that comes out of neuroscience is not just parts of the brain, but looking at, when we are able to be in this, the prefrontal cortex and the heart, we're able to be in what Dan Siegel calls a window of tolerance. He's out of UCLA and has done a ton of research on neuroscience. And this window of tolerance, he calls it, we like to call it a window of presence. John and Anna Chitty coined that, and it just fits much better for what we do, because I don't want to just tolerate my situation. I want to be here with you now, And so my window of presence, some of us have, and I probably had, a very narrow window. And by that I mean, this is the place where I can stay cool, calm, connected, creative, and you and I can have a fruitful conversation. We can work together on projects. I can say no. I can be integrous. I can do all of those things within my window. Now, what happens if we go above our window and I get scared? I feel criticized. Now, you may not be doing anything to criticize me, but because of my past experience, I may suddenly feel like, oh my God, Tom's looking at me. I think he's not approving. I've done something wrong again. And I may go to a place of pushing you away or shutting down. Donald Hebb in 1949 discovered that neurons that fire together wire together. And what that means is that repeated experiences over our lifetime creates what's called neural nets. And within those neural nets, metaphorically, because this is a group of experiences that happen, we create belief systems that we've been talking about, like I'm not enough, or people are scary, or I can't trust, or something's wrong with me, whatever those beliefs are. And they're in here. And so part of what we do at Ryzio is first creating an atmosphere of safety, which all the research says you have to have first. Secondly, we help our leaders, we help everyone have an experience of who they truly are. If you can experience, wait a minute, I am smart, I am lovable, I am capable, and that's an experience. It's not just every day and every way I'm getting better and better. Every day, no. This is not about thinking. This is about a whole body experience that I can show up right now as more and more of who I am. And the third piece is that the researchers say, the epigenetics people, Bruce Lipton and those guys, do not say that they say you need safety and experience of your true self. The attachment people, the brain people, the trauma, all say, yep, but we need a third thing. And this is important for us as leaders. We have to witness that showing up. When somebody does something, we have to witness. As little kids, they say, see me, I want you to see me. Yay! Well, I got to tell you, I don't know about you, but I still want to be seen. Our people still want to be seen in what they're doing. And so part of that I call look for the good and name it. The smallest things. And it's not attaboy and good job and thank you. Those are nice. But when you say, wow, the detail that you put in this report was really helpful. Or I'm noticing that in the meetings, you're being more vocal, and I'm appreciating that you're saying more about what your thoughts are. That's very helpful. If you were looking at a child's artwork, notice the difference in saying, good job, or saying, wow, that's pretty. And all of that helps create safety, helps the person that we're with have an experience of who they really are, and helps them feel witnessed and seen and heard. And that is the crux of all of the research, and that is what we do at Ryzio, is walk people through experiences that help them feel safe, help them know who they really are, and witness that in a loving, safe community.
Yeah, the shorthand, and I know you've heard me say this before, to be seen, to be heard, and to be appreciated.
Thank you. Why didn't I think of that? That's right. That's really what we need. I want you to see me. I want you to hear what I have to say. And I want you to notice, appreciate, even if you don't like it, even if I didn't hit the mark, don't throw it away. Tell me what I did that you did like.
Yeah, and so back to the question I asked before when we were talking about that 4-letter word, with that sense of safety, then you have trust. And I've heard varying opinions on what's more important, trust or love. And for me, it's a moot point. You need both. But I'd be curious if you have a point of view on the relationship of trust and love in the workplace.
Good question. I wouldn't separate them as you're not doing, but I would say we can't have authentic caring without trust. And trust has to do with the amount of safety I'm feeling. So as I feel safer to show up, then I'm going to care more deeply and in more ways. And then I'm going to go to bat for things that I might not have done before. So if I'm feeling like you really care about me as a person, you're interested in who I am, you're curious about what's happening, well, I'm going to sit up straight and try that again. Wow. And then I begin to honor you, and we can begin to be authentic with each other. I love to see all of us as leaders even talk to our executive teams, particularly, or whoever we're working with. How are we creating safety in our workplace?
So maybe just building off of the process that someone goes through, what do you see happens? What are the results that you've witnessed, that people have self-reported, and particularly for the leaders when they go back to their organizations, what to the extent you've done any longitudinal studies, what are you seeing that's changing the workplace?
Well, we see that, first of all, people go back, and it's not just an interesting experience, because we have programs that are that go over time, because it's one thing to go to a weekend or a week and you go, whoa, that was fantastic. I had this great time. And I go home and I tell everybody, wow, it was super. And then the next week, oh yeah, that was really good. And in a month, I'm right back to where I was. Nothing really changes. We're not growing the brain. We're not developing things. And we have to be able to grow the brain, develop the nervous system. And that's what happens when people get home. And the most dramatic example, there was a man who was chief financial officer of a pretty large corporation. And he came to us and he just was totally out of sorts, totally unhappy. And his hair was in his eyes. And he almost just didn't want to look up. He didn't want to look at anybody. And we went through the process. And when he went home, his wife picked him up at the airport. And he was out there and he was waiting for the car to come by. She didn't recognize him. She drove right past him, And another one was a couple months ago, I got an email from a man who is the head of a large corporation. His wife has her own business, and she went through the program. And a year later, he says, I just need to tell you, this program has changed our family. Not only has it helped her business go skyrocket, but it has helped our family. Our relationships are better, and we are so grateful. But they go back feeling good, and people go, you seem so calm. What are you taking? Or you used to go off the rails, and you haven't in a long time. What's going on? So it does make a huge difference in our families, in our workplaces, and just in our lives in general. And it also makes a difference in our health. Sometimes we miss that, but a lot of changes that we make in the brain and the nervous system help.
You're watching the Impact Effect Network. Is your team tuned out? Are you looking for a powerful speaker to motivate and inspire your organization? Then Tom Eddington is the choice for keynote speaker at your next conference or event. Tom is one of the most sought-after business advisors and coaches in Silicon Valley. For over 2 decades, Tom has advised world-renowned CEOs and executives on how to catapult their organization's success, including Hewlett-Packard, NBNA Corporation, and Royal Dutch Shell. In his dynamic keynotes, Tom offers fresh new paradigms on how to create healthier, happier, and more purposeful workplaces while navigating change and generating higher degrees of success for organizations. For information on booking Tom at your next event, contact eddingtonadvisory.com.
And with COVID-19 and the world being shut down for a period of time, and people adjusting to working virtually, what are your observations about what's happening, and what do you think are some things that are needed for both the individuals and the organizations?
This is such a critical question right now. So many of us are home. Some people live alone. Some people have had very little outside contact. And we have to be more aware and more conscious than ever about doing some of the things that we would do in person, but even more so, that help us make the human contact that we need. And one of them is slowing down. And I know you can't really have eye contact, but it can feel like it. So as much eye contact as we can have. And notice our gestures, our posture, our tone of voice. Sometimes in meetings, just to have people check in, not just how their project is going, but if it's appropriate for your work setting, we've got the horizontal, but let's do a little vertical. How are you doing at home? Or even in a private conversation, ask, I know you've been home for months now. I'd love to know how this is for you. It's been hard for me because I've got this and this going on. You see, I'm not just saying, okay, now you share with me, but we're going back and forth, and I'm sharing, the hardest part of for me has been not to see some of my kids that live in Washington, D.C., for example. So I'm vulnerable, and we have that one-on-one, but thank goodness for Zoom. Real eye contact, appropriate eye contact, creates the love hormone, the oxytocin, in the body. And so does touch, which we can't do right now. But anything we can do to help make human contact is vital right now. And as leaders, we have to talk to our teams. We have to be with our people and be genuinely concerned and conscious about what's happening for me and what's happening for you, and invite those deeper conversations.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Marty. One of the teams that I lead, it's a virtual team, and for the most part, none of the team members have ever worked together before. They're not physically located. They've never physically met. And so we have an agreement that we start each weekly meeting with a contemplative practice. So I will lead just a minute or two opportunity for people to just check in with their bodies and check in with their thoughts. And then each individual, when they're ready, will share a word that describes how they're feeling. Mm-hmm. And we've been doing this for a good part of the year. And what I've heard from the members of the team is they really appreciate that opportunity to ground and to come into the present. And as a result, they experience that the meetings are much more productive, much more engaging, much more fun, and they appreciate just the opportunity to be human and to be present.
Thank you for saying that. That's the huge piece of our work in Ryzio, is teaching those mindfulness things, which you know so much about, just paying attention to what's happening in my body right now, because that's how we become more conscious. And it's all the stuff that you teach, and how wonderful that you can have those moments with people that don't even know each other. And yet week by week, they're building some connections, and it almost doesn't matter what you do. But we need to have those practices before every meeting. Just have a moment and let everybody arrive. Because the truth is, I'm not here until my body may be here, but I'm still wondering about what I left on my desk before I got here, right? And thinking, oh my God, and that moment of just checking in and going, oh, I need a drink of water or whatever. So thank you for mentioning that. That's probably the number one process that we do and that we need to continue doing.
Well, just from my own personal experience, it provides that sense of safety,
Right.
or at least the environment for that sense of safety.
Exactly. And that's numero uno, only all the time. If we could keep in mind that piece of how am I creating safety? How am I connecting? And could I do this a little better? Pays rich dividends and really ups the bottom line as well.
I'd like to ask you to take out your crystal ball and just share with the listeners and the viewers what's needed. What are you hopeful for? What do you see is on the horizon in terms of the science, in terms of the work you're doing, and the environment that we're all living in?
Oh, thank you. I feel that we are all, as leaders right now, we are being called as never before in a time of chaos, a time of uncertainty, a time of fear, that who we are and how we show up is more critical than it's ever been. And it's really, really not only important, but that's what we're called to do, and it's what we can do. And sometimes it's one person or one small group at a time. But if you think about the one person that you're being with right now, and you're having eye contact, you're really listening, you're concerned, you're maybe working on something creative together, that person then goes to their team, and those people go home, and those people go to their neighbors, and those people, you can see it begins to branch out. One person in a Wuhan market can change the entire planet in 9 months. What could we do as leaders in the next 9 months with every person we meet, showering them with love, showering them with caring and concern, creating safety everywhere we go? And that involves slowing down, awareness of our own bodies, and that point of deeply listening. What is mine to do now? But I'm very excited about what I like to call, it actually comes from Gene Houston, who used to call it the breakdown to break through. We are in a time of everything is breaking down, and that's our opportunity. It's almost like we are the caterpillar that's gone into a cocoon. We're in quarantine. And what happens when a caterpillar is in quarantine is they become goo. And they don't know what's going to be happening. They bring the DNA, some DNA from who they've been. But the neat thing is, and I just learned this a few months ago, they also, what else enters the chrysalis is DNA from where they're going to help them prepare for what they need to do. And so inside this chrysalis, we may not even know that we're ready to fly. But it's there, and we are so ready to fly, and we do it by helping each other and by spreading the love one person at a time.
Well, I love that metaphor and the science behind it. And one of the observations I've made in the last couple of years is that in that chrysalis there are imaginal cells. They're not caterpillar, they're not butterfly, they're something other. And as I observe this newest generation coming into the world, it's almost as if they have those imaginal cells. They've got something that certainly people of our generation don't have. And it's our responsibility as leaders and as adults to help them We can look across the globe, whether it's in the climate change movement or social justice or other arenas. There are these young, powerful beings that seem to have something different about them. And I don't know that anybody's done a DNA analysis to see are there imaginal selves, but it certainly feels like their consciousness is elevated. They're showing up in a way that is quite remarkable for their development.
At Ryzio, we've been hosting some meetings around Black Lives Matter, and you've certainly done a lot of public service work on climate change and the planet and all kinds of things that you're doing. It's amazing. They're at a loss. A lot of them are feeling like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? And they need our support, and they need us to believe in them. They're not just these young people, who don't know what they're doing. They're our leaders, and they are telling us what we need to do next.
Well, thank you for the conversation today, Marti. It's been a pleasure. I was really looking forward to this, and I'm glad we were able to have you on the show. I'd like you to just reflect back and just think about in our conversation, what are the one or two things you'd like folks to take away from the conversation?
There's always more love. Always more love. And it's possible to grow your brain, change your nervous system, and even change the trajectory of your DNA. It's possible to connect more, to be more creative. It's all possible now. And we know how to do that. And it's our job to do that now and take it out into the world and be the love and be the support that's needed right now in this time.
And a final question, for folks that want to get in touch with you or the Ryzio Institute, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Ryzio.com. RYZIO, Ryzio.com. And by the way, there is a link there to a book we just put out, and it's free. So there's a book and a workbook called From Coping to Thriving, Leveraging Life's Challenges to Experience More Love and Joy and things like that. So that's right there on the first page. You just click on it and download it. So it's another resource as well.
Well, thank you, Marti. As always, it's great to be with you.
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate your work. It's making a huge difference on the planet.
Thank you.
You're watching the Impact Effect Network. Thank you for joining Tom Eddington on the Impact Effect. Visit impacteffectnetwork.com to connect with Tom and discover additional episodes featuring today's top leaders making a global impact through conscious leadership in the world today.